Pranil just recently defended and graduated from his master's program. His research delves into human-centered design principles applied to immersive technologies with a particular focus on virtual reality. Through his thesis, he aimed to identify effective methods for integrating virtual reality into existing standards of training programs, with an emphasis on enhancing human factors. By leveraging immersive technology, Pranil seeks to supplement training experiences to enhance the efficacy of the learners, which I think, yeah, is a pretty hot topic right now. So, Pranil, I will let you begin. I can see your presentation and I can hear you.
Thank you, Dr. Dorman. Thanks for the introduction. I'd like to start my presentation with the poll questions presented by Toby. Okay, have you used a VR headset before? Just a simple questions, just to gauge the audience experience. I'd like to give it a moment. Okay, so that's a quite good number, I would say. 42% have already experienced the VR. And we have a great number of VR enthusiasts here. And yeah, we may have played VR games like horror games, or maybe used it for flight simulators or something, or maybe explore space station program. In this project, we have implemented VR in a safety training. This is a part of my thesis work that I did in a master's. The title for this presentation is Integrating VR in Working at Height Training Program. And this project have been supervised by Dr. Athvinder Grewal and Dr. Alison Godwin. Today, I'll be focusing on these topics. So let's start with the background and some statistics, fall from height. According to the report of CPWR in United States, more than 1,000 fatalities was caused in the construction site, and among them, 389 fatalities are caused due to fall from height. So that makes up 38% of total construction fatalities only due to fall from height, which is a great number. And in Canada, we can see there is 40,000 falls that has been reported every year. Talking about Ontario, more than 22 fatalities are caused in the construction site. So therefore, fall from height is regarded as one of the primary reasons of occupational injuries and fatalities. Due to this alarming number of accidents, working at height training has been implemented as a mandatory training around the world. Similarly, in 2015, the Ministry of Labour in Ontario implemented a mandatory working at height training for the workers who work at height. This training is compulsory for the worker who work more than 3 meters of height, or work above any hazardous substance, or wear any fall protection equipments. So this training must be taken from a ministry approved training provider. The training is a full day long, which is 7.5 hours, and it is led by an instructor. There are two modules in the training. First is a basic theory module. We can see the typical fashion of the module is in a classroom, as shown in the picture, and where an instructor goes through slides describing rules and methods of safety instructions. The second method is a practical module, where we gain hands-on training with safety equipments and procedures. And both of the module is 3 hours long. I personally took this training before conducting this research. To be honest, I thought the training would be something like this in the picture, where I'll be wearing the fall protection equipments, and I'll be climbing some ladders or be in a roof where I can see all the fall protection mechanisms. But sadly, I didn't see that in the training. It was all in the classroom. And also to aid, I was struggling with the complex terminologies and technical jargons used in the training. So the major missing I found was context. Being whole day long inside a classroom, it was not basically giving me some environmental knowledge in this training. Robson et al. In University of Toronto evaluated the effectiveness of regulatory working at height training in Ontario. At the end of grace period, which is 2017, more than 400,000 Ontario workers completed this mandatory training. In this graph, we can see that 78% of workers completed this training within a grace period of 2 years, and 92% of employers were compliant to the regulations. So this suggests that the training was widely adopted, and they also conducted a surveys and interviews with workers and employer where they found out the training was effective and they perceived the training was knowledgeable. Furthermore, there was a reduction of lost time claims after the implementation of the training. So to summarize, the training was statistically significant, but the effect was modest, as they concluded. Burke et al. Classified training into 3 different categories based on engagement. They were least, moderate, and most engaging training. The basic theory model that we discussed falls under the least engaging training, while the practical module falls under the most engaging training, as they are the hands-on training. The result of meta-analysis of their study of 95 shows that most engaging training are more effective in reducing the negative outcomes. So in this project, we have focused on the basic theory module and to improve the efficiency of basic theory module using a different presentation formats. So this is our main objective, to study the difference in learning outcomes with different presentation format, which we'll see in the next slide. So we can see that the first format is a video and the second is VR. Video is to basically simulate the lecture which is currently running in the standard working at height training program, and VR would be it would be based on the same video format, or would be based on the lecture format. We will be testing some learning outcomes after the training, and we have a second phase of training that follows in an alternate sequence. The second set of training is basically the same training but in alternate fashion, and we'll be testing some learning outcomes after the second phase of training. This is basically to check whether the supplemental training added more information or whether it made the training more effective. The methodology starts with developing a scenario. So we picked this scenario where a worker would be standing on a roof of a house and it has a lot of hazard, opening edges and the opening of the roof. And so the worker has to recall the order of hierarchy of protection, and he has to use the mechanism to work safely. So this is our basic scene, and implementation has been done based on this scene on both video and a VR. This is one of the slides that we used in the video training where general rules regarding the rights of worker are discussed. Video training is audiovisual where there is a voice narration of text. The same text is this. The relevant images are illustrated for each of the training sets. This is another slide for the video training which illustrates different hazards and the method to eliminate them. The picture in the right depicts the scenarios of recognizing the hazard and eliminating the hazard. This is the implementation of VR scene, and this is one of the scenes that we used in the training. The text information and the voice narration are basically the same as video training. The difference is the context. As we can see here, there is a 3D model of the whole building, and there is a 3D model of the full body harness. And this is another scene of VR training that we used, where the guardrails on the rooftop openings and the steps for the safe procedures are illustrated. The whole training metaphor is a construction site where worker would be working on an under construction building. We considered 4 learning outcomes to measure learning effectiveness. They are knowledge, self-efficacy, VR perception, and usability. Melanie has already discussed the importance of knowledge and self-efficacy. I would like to repeat that. Knowledge is adapted from reference manual and are based on the rules that are presented in those reference manual. And these are 11 questionnaire, that is MCQ questions, which has 4 options. It is basically the same as the test that we take in a regular working at height training program. And self-efficacy is defined as individuals' belief in their capacity to execute behavior to do a task. We adopted 3 skill-based questionnaire from Loblagia study, and VR perception questionnaire are the same 3 skill-based questions comparing video and a VR interface. Usability is defined as a measure of how well a user can use the product to achieve defined goal efficiently. We adopted a widely used SUS, that is system usability scale, which has a 10 scale-based questions. These learning outcomes are derived from 3 methods to measure training effectiveness. One of them is KSA, that is knowledge, skills, and attitude. And the second one is Kirkpatrick's evaluation model, which has 4 evaluation methods. And the third one is technology acceptance models. One of the learning outcomes is objective, that is knowledge, while other 3 being subjective. A user testing was conducted where 26 participants from Laurentian University was recruited. They were divided into 2 groups with random sampling, Group A and Group B. The exclusion criteria are the student below 18 years of old, or those who has medical conditions that may induce nausea while the use of VR. This is for safety purposes. We adopted a crossover design as our experimental setup, where a Group A and Group B are divided, and a pretest was conducted. So this pretest was basically to find the baseline and to find out demographics of the participants. And the learning outcomes is background, knowledge, and self-efficacy. The first set of training was introduced, which is Group A goes through the video training and Group B through the VR training. These training are basically about 6 minutes long. And mid-test was conducted after each set of training. It has learning outcomes as knowledge, self-efficacy, and system usability scale. The difference of knowledge and self-efficacy from mid-test to the pre-test can be used to find the gain in knowledge and self-efficacy. So following is the alternate sequence of second round of training. So Group A goes through the VR training and Group B goes to the video training. And we can find the overall learning outcomes at the end of the training, that is post-test. So we are measuring knowledge, self-efficacy, system usability scale, and perception. Perception questionnaire are basically to to compare video with VR. So let's have a look at demographics. Majority of participants did not have a previous VR experience, where we can see that 16 participants did not have the previous VR experience. Talking about gender, majority of participants were male. We can see a small number of female participants. And since it was a convenience sampling, and these were all the participants that we got for this study. And talking about age, the majority of participants were the age between 20 to 29. And like most of the participants did not have a previous working at height experience, that is 25 out of 26 participants. The figure shows knowledge score of both group across all the tests, that is pre-test, mid-test, and post-test. On the x-axis and on the y-axis, we can see the knowledge score. The line graph of 2 categories, video VR and VR video sequence, is illustrated. For knowledge, video VR sequence is completed by Group A and VR video is completed by Group B. We'll be using this term alternatively. Both groups showed a similar trend of knowledge gain. In pre-test, a score of both groups are similar, that is 6.5 and 6.6. After the first training, that is in the mid test, Group A had a higher increase in knowledge, that is 9 out of 11. The increase in score at mid test are statistically significant for both of the group. After the second set of training, that is in post test, there was a slight increase in score for both of the group. The figure shows a box plot of self-efficacy score of both group across all the tests, that is pre-test, mid-test, and post-test. And on the y-axis, we have the score of self-efficacy. In pre-test, the score of group A, which was slightly higher than group B. Both groups increased their score in the first test, and the increase was statistically significant. The increase in score of Group B, Group A was statistically significant in the second set of test as well, which is on post-test, while there was a slight decrease in the self-efficacy score for the Group B. The box plot of system usability scale is plotted in this figure. The SUS score is a unidimensional score that ranges from 0 to 100. This score can be generated by using Brooks' study, who is a developer of SUS score. And we can see that the score ranges from 60 to 80, which suggests that the interface was acceptable or a good one. The frequency of perception questionnaire is tabulated in the figure. We have 3 perception questions that is based on preference, easier to remember, and engagement, comparing VR with the video training. And here we can see that the red ones are the ones the participants are favorable to the video, and the blue ones are participants favorable to the VR. And we can see a greater number of participants that will incline toward the use of VR in all 3 parameters, that is preference, easier to remember, and perception. We further observed the system usability scale, which is a 10 scale based questionnaire. Our score range is calculated by aggregating the response of 10 questions out of 100. A study conducted by Soro and Lewis found a strong correlation of 2 questions deviating from other questions, that is question 4 and question 10. They conducted a factor analysis to find a multi-factor possibility of SUS. They concluded that these 2 questions were strongly correlated with each other. So they came up with 2 factors, that is the learnability factors from 8 questions and the usability factors from 8 questions and learnability factors from these 2 questions, that is questions 4 and question 10. And we have used the same approach, and we found a strong correlation of both factors. So we are considering usability and learnability in our study. And we plotted a box plot of same system usability scale dividing into 2 factors. On the blue, we can see the video, and the red represents VR. And we can see group A and group B on the x-axis. A statistically higher learnability of VR can be found, which suggests that participants from group B found it more difficult to learn in VR. And we conducted a correlation analysis that between demographics and system usability scale to find the relationship between usability and demographics. An interaction between age and usability was found, which suggests that higher age group found VR less usable. And the second interaction was usability and learnability of video, which was a positive correlation. And usability of VR had a positive correlation with perceptions. Those who are measuring the higher usability score are also inclined more toward the VR session. Can you see my video now? It was interrupted. Sorry for that.
Yeah.
To summarize our overall result, we can see that after the first round of test, there was a statistically significant result in both knowledge and self-efficacy. And after the second set of training, there was an increase of self-efficacy score in group A. So this can be used to answer two questions. That is, does the order of training matters? The answer would be partly yes, because here we can observe that group A that follows video and VR increase the learning outcomes in both of the phases. The second questions that can be raised is, will the VR integrating in current training method be beneficial? The result is similar. As we can see that participants after VR training significantly increase their self-efficacy in both of the tests. After adding the VR, they significantly increase their self-efficacy score. The result of SUS can be used to make a better usable system in the further study. And our result align with the recommendation of Alkiami and Jager's study on their paper, creating a safer workplace, where they recommend that an iterative three-stage approach to VR training, that is starting with the video introduction, then familiarizing with the VR, with giving them a pre-training before using the VR set, like familiarizing with the headset and hand controller, and then using the working at height training module in a VR simulation would lead to a higher confidence in the worker. So some of the takeaways from this work was considering the learnability factor while measuring the usability. Since learnability is a factor that gives a clear picture of user adoption, adding more interaction and animation in VR interface would engage the user. Developing a more usable VR interface and also providing adequate pre-training before VR training would significantly increase the usability of VR. An ideal training would be introducing video and clarifying the concept with the VR training through interactions. So put everything together, we can conclude that integration of VR will increase the efficiency of current working at height training within it, but it should be easy and user-centric interface. So that's all for today. I'd like to have some questions if you have any.
Great job, Pranil. Thank you for that.
Okay.
The first one is, what technology do you need to be able to create these models?
So the technology that we used is we used both open source technology that we had from Purdue University, that is the model of the full body harness and some model of construction site. And talking about technology stack, we used Blender to create the 3D models, and the Unity to create the whole development as a development IDE, that is integrated development environment.
Okay. From Bernard Fontaine, the question is, do you represent all types of construction work where fall protection is needed, like climbing vehicle ladders on jack pumps, offshore oil rigs, steel erection, high-rise buildings, etc.?
Yeah, thanks for the questions. Yeah, we have used only one of the scenarios, that is under construction building and the hazard associated with the building. So it is kind of like a pilot study, that I would say, because we have only used a certain factors, that is a rooftop as a hazard, and to use guardrails and the fall protection equipments. Unfortunately, we haven't tried everything because it is highly demanding to develop everything in VR. So we have created a 6-minute long simulation, which is only related to the under construction building.
Okay. Thank you. And there's also a question about the cost. How much does VR cost?
It is quite
Like,
related
I guess, I
questions.
mean, yeah, in terms of like, I guess there's doing the study, but I guess in terms of if you were going to implement VR as part of a training too.
Yeah, I would say there is a two-phase of cost. Like, that is while development, that is a one-time cost, and adoption is a second cost. And we can have a different sets of headset, like it can range from uh, maybe like $50 to $1,000. And what we can do here is we can use the lower end headset, like which comes under 50 to 100, to provide a full VR experience. That will not have like more set of interactive approach, but it will basically give the context that I used in this training or in this research. It does not need to be like of high-end headset. It can come up to like $100, and it's not that much as compared to other headset
Mm.
and other work.
So the cost is more in the development of the training module, it sounds like.
Yeah.